Welcome everyone to the There Is Always More podcast, a show where we bring our gifts to the Holy Spirit to bring the kingdom of God here on earth, not for our own ego and pride, but to bring the glory of God here on earth. So today I'm joined by Susan Middleton, and of course by my co-host, Father Rafal Valchik. Did I say that right? Awesome.
Good.
All right, so Susan Middleton, I'm just going to read what I found, and hopefully I'm saying this right, so please correct me if I got it wrong. So Susan Middleton is a co-founder of the Think Hope Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to unleashing the power of hope, one person at a time, in a world of despair through educational and outreach ministries. And she's especially connected through this topic with her daughter, through her own daughter, Maria Middleton. So thank you so much for being here with us.
You're welcome.
Just really quick, like what's your background? Like, did you grow up here, or
I didn't.
You didn't grow up here? Just really quick.
Rachel, it can't be quick because I'm old. so I grew up in Brooklyn.
Okay.
So one of 6 children. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in a very blue collar. My dad was a New York City firefighter. And I grew up in a neighborhood of police officers, firefighters, sanitation. You know, that kind of was the demographics of the area that I grew up. So, and my school was St. Therese of Lisieux, the Little Flower. So right from the start, and then I chose her as my confirmation name. And she's been instrumental in my life in many ways. So her beautiful philosophy of love. So, yeah, so that, and then I went to Catherine McAuley High School, and then I went on to college, and I became a dental hygienist, and I practiced dental hygiene for, I guess, close to 20 years. And then I had some issues with that and went into administrative work, started working with my husband. And so we're a good team. We work together, yeah. And then did that, and so checkered path, you know, God is great in His mercy. God is great in His mercy. I had gotten married, had 2 children, went through a divorce, and then met my husband, and he was also divorced, and we both got our annulments, and then we got married in church at St. Agnes in Sellersville, and then Maria was our gift in many ways, and so she was the glue in our blended family. So she had 5 older siblings, and I was an old mom when I gave birth to her. In relative terms, I was 44, so I guess that's an old mom.
Yeah, my mom was 39 when I was born.
Oh, she was young.
And I still have a younger sister. But as my mom told me, she was there was a huge battle about me, because I am the 4th of 5, and my oldest brother, actually the only brother, was 16 years older than I am. Then my sisters are older, 14 and 12, so 12 years break, and I was coming to this world. And the best friends of my mother suggested her abortion. Because now you need to rest, you have to have fun. You are almost 40 years old. It's not a time to give birth to another child. So she found a priest who listened to her once, twice, 3rd time, and more. And I was born. Yeah, so...
What a gift.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know, in the middle of 70s when I was born, it wasn't like today. When I was born, it looked like it was like child first and then career. Now it seems to me like career first and then a child. But sometimes it's already too late for a child. That's true. So how was it for you to be a mom at 44?
I was ecstatic. Well, you know, first of all, I felt like, you know, God is so great in His mercy, and to get another shot at doing this right, having marriage, and, you know, meeting my husband, and then we were blessed. So first, we first conceived a child, and then I had miscarried that child. And 6 months later, I was pregnant again. And so my doctor was like ecstatic that, a woman my age, So he was really very happy. But he said, just like the last time, this ultrasound isn't sounding good. I want you to come back in another week. And I knew what that meant from having had a miscarriage. This is very traumatic. And I went home and I remember reading that St. Teresa of Avila said, if you want a prayer, if you have a prayer and you want it answered, take it to St. Joseph. He listened to Jesus on earth. He still listens in heaven to his foster dad, So I was like, wow, I don't think I've ever prayed to St. Joseph. And so I took my prayer to St. Joseph and prayed a novena. And by the time I went back, he did the ultrasound and he looks at the ultrasound and he said, again, he asked for a second hand on a watch, and I knew what that meant. He was listening to the heart, looking for the heartbeat and counting the beats. And he said, he shakes his head no, and I'm watching the monitor. And he said, I'm sorry. He said, you lost that baby. And I said, doctor, I see a heartbeat. And he mouthed, that wasn't there before. And then he was like, well, that must be a vanishing twin. And the heartbeat was strong. And I knew right then that St. Joseph answered our prayer. And that was Maria. She started by having the world take a second look. And I think in some ways, the world is still taking a second look at Maria, And it was the easiest pregnancy. I had two C-sections before, so she was a scheduled C-section. And I went into labor the day of my C-section. So there was no avoiding that. She was born, so she was born on September 10th, 2002. But it was just beautiful, And we already knew that if it was a boy, we didn't know what we were having, but if it was a boy, he was going to be named Joseph, as our thanks to St. Joseph. And if it was a girl, she was going to be named Maria after our thanks to Blessed Mother. So the doctor asked us, they were like, you have a girl, do you have the name? And we were like, yes, Maria. And he starts singing from West Side Story. Maria, I just met a girl named Maria.
Yeah. Oh, what a good one. I know this is a loaded question, but then what were some of her qualities? Like, how would you describe? I know it's.
No, I'm glad you asked. Really, Rich, I'm glad you asked, because Maria was just, she had such a brilliant mind. And she was courageous. Now you have to realize, growing up like you with the older siblings, 12 and 14 years older than her, there was a house full of teenagers, right, when Maria's born. And so her brothers, I would say, check on Maria, and they would open the door to the bedroom and go, wah, to her, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't say scare her, But as she was able to walk and run, they tried to chase after her, like big monsters, and she'd stop in her track, turn around and start charging them. And that was her personality. She never, in the face of fear, she'd run at it, And she was an honor student as she went on. What happened was I homeschooled her for kindergarten, and partly because it was a half-day program, and I'm like, you know what, let's have fun with this. My husband and I were doing some traveling, right? We're all older now, and took her with us. She can learn about things as we travel and all that. And her mind, as a kindergarten, she was learning the circulatory system, because she had questions about everything. She wanted to know how elephants' trunks worked and pipe organs worked, and how all these different questions that I'm like, I better look this up. I'm not sure how these things work, So it was just a wonderful time of exploration and just watching that little mind. She was 3 years old, and she said, I was dusting in the house. Mom, what are you doing? I'm dusting. Looks like you're undusting.
Oh my God.
She goes, you're not putting dust on, are you? And I'm like, hey, Amelia Bedelia, come on.
Here you go.
Exactly. But this mind of hers was always a critical thinker. Questioning, exploring, wanting to know. It was just a beautiful mind to behold. One time we were sitting at the dinner table, our siblings, all of us around, and she picks up the spoon, and she goes, why am I upside down when I look at myself on this side and right side up when I turn the spoon over? I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't think I've ever looked at myself in a spoon, you know?
And then you're looking like, oh no, how do I answer this?
Exactly. So I'm like, well, it probably has to do with concave and convex, but we're going to have to look this up. That's the kind of mind, this inquisitive, beautiful.
Yeah. But it sounds like I think you said the right word, which is critical thinker, which is she wanted to, I don't think she was doing it, inquisitive. Like, it just sounds like she just wanted to learn and grow. You know what I mean? Like, and what was spirituality for her like then? Was she curious about it as a young age, or was it something she just learned,
You know, thanks to the shrine and the Eucharistic adoration, when I was asked to be an adorer, she was 3 years old. And I hesitated at first. I'm like, oh my goodness, the kids are in high school. Can I do this? Well, they're still in school, but I have Maria. And I said to Lena at the time, I said, you know what? I'm going to try. I said, but I'm not sure. She goes, that's okay. Try and see. Well, I don't have to tell the two of you or your audience that was the most guarded hour and a half of our week. Once you start spending time with the Lord, it just becomes a part of your life that you never want to give up. And so she'd come with me every week, and she learned Divine Mercy, Chaplet, we'd say that, and then the Rosary, and that was a big part. So yeah, so I had her consecrated actually at her baptism to the Blessed Mother. We had a special little a prayer set, and I'll never forget the priest at the baptismal font was in the back of the church. And I said to him, Father, I said, I want to do a consecration to the Blessed Mother. I want to consecrate Maria to Mary in thanksgiving for her. And we all said the prayer, and he takes Maria from my arms, and he walks straight up the center aisle of the church, and he holds her high above his head to the Lord. And it was at that moment I felt this severing. And I was like, she is not mine. She's yours. Right down in my heart, like boom. The message was so clear. And it's really a message for every parent to think about. Our children are not ours.
Did you have fear in that moment?
It was a severing. It was I don't want to call it a pain, but it was this deep knowing. And I respected that knowing.
I think,
Okay, so it wasn't like a fear. It was just like, I need to understand this on a very deep level. And each of us, are created in his image and likeness, not our parents, right? And we belong to him and Maria knew that. She knew she was a child of God. She knew that she was here to know, love, and serve him so that she'd be happy with him in heaven one day. She was sort of a little walking Baltimore catechism.
Yeah, no, I think for someone that young to carry that with them, because I feel like as a young adult, I feel like I'm learning that now. You know what I mean? So like to have someone that young, carry that with them and know it and honor it and walk with it. I mean, that's...
And, she's teaching me. And as her mom, I feel like that's a little bit of a flip, right? Mm-hmm. But she really is. I mean, I won't want to jump ahead of your questions and all, but there's so much that I'm still uncovering and finding out. Her relationship with the Lord was as real as the three of us are sitting here. She knew that the Lord was her God. And she loved him, and she knew there was nothing greater than him. And she had an intimate, and I do credit adoration, because the conversation with Jesus began at a time when I wasn't aware of, this friendship with the Lord, spending that much time as a young little girl, and then she'd run over to Blessed Mother and light a candle. That was her routine, and every week. And so that became part of her fabric. Yeah. This real relationship with Jesus. We were going to see Jesus today, and we're going to pray and thank him for our blessings. And then if anyone was sick or something, we'd pray for them. So, it's so real. It's so powerful. Unfortunately, there's a veil that separates us from that beatific vision, which now she's in full vision of.
But how lucky she was that you were able to give her those gifts at a young age. Because I think, and that you were an example for her. You know what I mean? Like you were almost like a Saint Anne to her. The Saint Anne to, no, but I truly mean that. I think young people, they pick up from their parents. And of course, there were so many graces that she was given too, and that she had to respond to and walk in faith with as well.
Absolutely, and you're right. And as parents, I remember, so I told you my dad was a firefighter and for the New York City Fire Department. So one of 6 kids, and their schedule is sometimes they work day shifts, sometimes they work night shifts. Mm-hmm. And I remember being a young girl and going into my mom's bedroom at night. Maybe I couldn't sleep, I don't know, something was on my mind. And there she'd be laying in bed with her rosaries, mm-hmm. And I was like, is it okay if I talk? She was like, oh, sure, And I'd go in and share whatever was on my heart with her, mm-hmm. and look. And there's something so powerful about observing your parents. My mother in this situation, like the faith that's instilled isn't a faith that you dictate. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was watching my mom, watching how we lived, and we went to Mass every Sunday, they observed all the religious holidays. And as a family, we sat down every night at dinner together around the table. That was customary, and there's a great connection between your dinner table and the altar, the table. There really is, and so you don't minimize it. And I think sometimes, in this world, the attacks are great to pull apart the family, to pull apart the dinner time. Sports or activities are more important, and we're losing sight of what's truly important.
Yeah. And then you couldn't teach her about conclave and,
Yeah.
I know, right? Exactly.
What was Maria's favorite devotion?
Her favorite devotion, so she had a favorite Bible verse, very young. I think she was in 3rd grade. And it was John 15. I am the vine, and you are the branches. Unless you remain in me and I in you, you will not bear fruit. So when you think about that, unbelievable, it's probably one of the most powerful Bible verses, because apart from him, we can do nothing. Yeah. He didn't say some things. He said, apart from me, you can do nothing.
Mm-hmm. And it's a great visualization, especially for young kids. Like, as soon as it's detached.
And she had to pick out a favorite Bible verse, and she was in 3rd grade. Mm-hmm. And then she had to write it like a scroll. So we got old, I remember in the backyard with her with a match, burning the edges to make it look old. Yeah. And she went out and found 2 sticks, and we used cord, to make the scroll. I still have it hanging in her bedroom. Oh. And in her writing, I am the vine and you are the branches. And like I said, it's unless we stay grafted to the Lord, mm-hmm. we can't bear anything good. And I know that firsthand, from my mistakes in life. God is merciful, and I'm so grateful for His mercy. But I had to learn later.
But without those mistakes, you wouldn't be in the place where you are right now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And probably without those mistakes, we would not talk about Maria right now.
That's probably true, Father. But you know what? Like now, at this part of my journey, those mistakes bring me great sorrow.
But even on Easter Vigil, there is this hymn where we sing the blessed error, the blessed mistake.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
So maybe those mistakes you made in your life, they were blessed. And they brought much greater blessing to your life and lives of many, many others.
That's a beautiful way for everyone to look at the mistakes, because we are human and we're flawed, and we have a sinful nature. It's a given, right?
And this is funny. I like to say that God even allows us to commit sins, to make mistakes. Because if we wouldn't commit sin, if we would not make mistake, how could He express His mercy towards us? He's merciful. I would say that's one of his names, mercy.
Father Raphael, Maria wrote in her journal at age 11, opening up a new journal, God is merciful, period.
At the age of 11.
11.
Oh my gosh.
How many journals did she write?
You know, so in adoration, she would see me sometimes journal or read a prayer book or something like that. So when she became of age where she could write, I'd give her a little journal, you know, and I never looked at it. I read Jose Maria Escriva's The Forge, I think it was, a little book. Gave it to her. She highlighted what resonated within her, things like that. So she kept a journal, and she kept it not every day, but probably I just found actually, and this is 4 years now after her death, I found a preschool. No, it wasn't. It was first grade paper that she did, and the teacher wrote on the top, I have a dream. My dream is. First grade. Mm-hmm. I don't know. What would your dream be at first grade?
To be the most famous soccer
I
player.
knew
There you
it.
go. Famous soccer player. That's a great dream. How
Yeah.
about you, Rachel?
Probably a
First grade.
teacher.
To be a teacher.
Something like that.
Yeah, she
Well,
was dreaming about
first.
being a saint.
No, she said, I have a dream that everybody will follow Jesus.
Oh my gosh.
So she didn't think about herself. She was focused on others. Mm-hmm.
She wanted others to be happy. I think because she could see all the.
And then it had another question underneath it. How can you make that dream come true or something like that?
Yeah.
By spreading the good news.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting chills. Yeah.
So and she drew a little bit, and you had to draw a little picture of yourself, and she drew a typical first grade picture of herself, And so I just, it's interesting that I had just found that I think this is her first journal entry. So,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's things like that. And then, of course, as she got older, they became, she even journaled about transubstantiation. And I wouldn't be able to give her any justice by trying to recite what she wrote, because it was a good page and a half about her take about what symbol versus real. It's brilliant.
I remember several times you were at adoration with Maria, and I was sitting a couple of pews behind. And you wouldn't say that right in front of you there is a child, like 10, 9 years old. She was always behaving, always quiet, not making any noise. And I was always like amazed. But you were the first one who gave her the example.
Well, I remember writing my mom a thank you. My mom's deceased now, but I wrote her a thank you note. And it probably, some of these things that happen in your life that God allows, the mistakes and then the forgiveness and that kind of thing. And it was after like a bumpy road of my life. And I remember sitting down and writing a letter to my parents. My dad was quiet, but my mom was really the nurturer in the family, and the one who showed us faith, and I remember thanking her for that gift. We didn't have a lot material things, I had hand-me-down clothes and things like that. But I never felt deprived of anything because we had love in the household. And I remember thanking Mom for the gift of faith, because that's something that I'll always have with me. And it's so, I feel so blessed. I do. I feel so blessed, and I guess, yes, that's important, and it was always important to me. So for each of our children, all of our children, actually, we've laid down a foundation as best as we could of faith for them to follow.
We are talking about your daughter, about Maria. She did. So actually, what happened that we are talking about her? Like from this perspective, in the past tense. So, because we say a lot, but probably a lot of people who are listening to us have no idea what happened.
Okay.
Could you say something?
So yeah, I was gonna say, like, when did you notice that maybe something was wrong with Maria? Was it?
Okay, let me give you a little history. That's important. Yeah. Father Raphael, you were one of the first priests who entered during this time when she was diagnosed. You remember, right, when you had a vision of the basketball, but you also were very instrumental in alleviating a fear of hers, because during this time, she was losing, maybe losing a little bit of focus as to what others might telling her, what she, because she was hearing all these wonderful things from people. And I will fill in the gaps here so your audience would understand. But she knew it wasn't coming from her, that she was allowing God to use her as an instrument for others to find God. And I think, we met with you, and you said to Maria, because she wrote about it in her journal, and you advised her to just be a 17-year-old girl. You gave her great wisdom during this time of all these things being, medically and everything. And it was just sort of like, just take a deep breath and just be 17. And it's just what she needed to hear.
I remember that it was Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving Day, at your house, right? Yeah, it was.
And it's just what she needed to hear. So, Maria, so here she is with this fierce intellect, courageous spirit, brave heart, and kind, and a loving disposition. Everybody loved being around Maria. She was funny, she was sarcastic, she had this great personality. And now she starts developing her talents. So she's an Irish dancer, and she becomes an Irish dance instructor. She plays the piano. She cantored with me at church at St. John the Baptist. We would sing together, especially on Mother's Day. And she would sing in the choir. She broke the 100-yard dash in the school track, and she never ran track. Her friends were like, "We need a fourth person for relay." "Mom, I really don't want to run." I said, "Maria, but you're fast." And she winds up, like, the relay team fell apart, but she winds up winning, breaks the school record for the 100-yard dash and goes on to the Penn relays.
Oh my goodness.
And she had like 5 times she ran in her life, that kind. It was really, as a matter of fact, she didn't even know how to stand right when you start, when you have to get down. So we had to have a little coaching by someone from Mr. Monday coached her a little bit. But anyway, so she had a lot of gifts, and then she was the president of her junior year in high school. She was elected president of her class, top student. She already got a scholarship to Widener and she just began her junior year. For college already, they're looking at her and all these things. And she starts with some headaches. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm thinking, wow, she's 16 and, hormones, things are changing. Her body, she's probably just getting some headaches. I'm like, well, take a Tylenol, take a Motrin. And then she'd complain again about these headaches. And I said, well, did you take something for it, Maria? And she said, Mom, by the time I take it, they're gone. So I'm like, well, this is an odd kind of headache. So we took her to her doctor, her pediatrician, and he did an exam, and he was like, you know what? She's an A student, and she probably is bending over, writing, working on her computer, and she has she's probably doing things to her muscles that's creating the strain in her neck and to her head. Logical thing. He said, why don't we take her for some physical therapy and see if they can loosen the muscles and all. And it was actually, and he said, if that doesn't relieve it, then I said, should we take her to a neurologist? And he said, yeah, but let's wait and see if physical therapy works. So we took her for physical therapy. And it was actually the physical therapist who pulled me aside, and she said, has she had like a CAT scan or anything yet on her head? And I was like, no. And she goes, I would recommend you do that. So she put that in my head. She went on to tell me that she lost a sister to a brain tumor. And so I was like, okay. So when I left that appointment with Maria, I called the neurologist and I said, I need to make an appointment for my daughter. And the first thing they had was a month in the future. So I said, okay, I took the appointment. But Maria, she went to concerts, she hung out with her friends. I'm always asking, how the headaches? Sometimes they were really bad. And I said, can you explain what you're feeling? She said, Mom, it feels like a sharp knife right in the back of my head, that somebody's hitting me with this knife. So I'm like, I really don't like the sound of this. And, I'm feeling all the inner anxiety and fear. I said, okay. I said, you know what we're going to do? I said, we're going to go and I'm going to pick you up from school tomorrow. You have a half day at Villa. And I said, I'm going to drive you to school. I'll pick you up. I said, and we're going to have an MRI. Just like that. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that that's not the protocol. So I drop her off at Villa. St. Bede's is across the street, and they have perpetual adoration. So I go into adoration while I'm waiting for Maria. And I had set that appointment up, and my phone rings in adoration. I walk outside, and it's the hospital, and Doylestown Hospital. And they said, ma'am, we see you're scheduled for an MRI, but we can't find a script from the doctor who recommended this. And I said, there isn't one. I said, my daughter just needs one. They said, no, you can't come in. That's not the way it's done. You have to get this from your doctor. So I was in tears, and I called my husband, and I'm like, we can't do this. I said, I need to find out what's going on. And he said, just go to the emergency room. And that's what I did. Yeah. So January 31st, 2019, I took her to the emergency room, picked her up. I said, we're going right to the hospital. And told the doctor her symptoms, and they did a CT scan. And he saw something on the CT scan. He ordered an MRI right there and then. And then it's the parent's worst possible moment when you called back privately into the room. And with tears in his eyes, he said, this is not good news. He said, Maria has a brain tumor. And he said, and it's on the pons. He said, it's in an area of the brain that really, I need you to go right now to Children's Hospital and have them take a look at this. So I sent for an ambulance, and we went down to Children's Hospital. And the nightmare began. The doctor down there, it was almost like Beelzebub in a lab coat. He had no bedside manner. Maria was in the room, the nurse, they were doing, getting her vitals and doing all that. He calls us outside to look at the scan, the MRI. And he said, your daughter has a diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma on her brainstem. And I'm like, okay, doctor, what does that mean? It means that she has 9 to 12 months left. She just danced last night. What are you talking about? 9 to 12 months? How could life get flipped like this in an instant? Luckily, this was pre-COVID. I had a little cold. So my tears and my sniffles were like, Maria, my cold's getting really bad. We didn't say anything to Maria other than they're going to observe her overnight, that she had a brain tumor that they wanted to now find out a little bit more about. And they kept her overnight. And the next day, she had questions about the brain tumor. And one of her questions was where it was located, and they told her. And she said, will it affect my intelligence? I said, no, never will affect your intelligence. She's like, good, I've got homework to do. And she was in her bed, and she's talking to her friends, and she's letting everyone know. Now, you have to realize that this moment of hopelessness is an intersection of hope. Hope happens at that point if you turn to God. I wanted to climb into a hole, cover myself up, and say, Lord, when it's over, you let me know, because I don't know how to walk this journey, and this cross is really heavy. And then I said, well, you can't go into a hole. And you have to almost fight your human nature, because your human nature is keep it secret, keep it in here, don't let anybody know this is bad. This is bad. Nobody should know bad, right? And I had to like fight out of that and say, no, we need prayer. Maria needs prayer, and we need prayer. And with that, the first thing we did was send out that Maria was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and she needs prayer. And that request for prayer, due to like the phones and the internet and all that, went literally around the world like this. Messages started coming in from all over the world, praying for Maria, praying for Maria. Well, when you open yourself up to prayer, you open yourself up to God's grace. And you know, we have this inclination to go within and go into self when we're given a cross, when instead we should be looking up, because there, then the grace, and we felt the power of that grace, and Maria felt the power of those prayers. That on the back of her memorial card is a poem that she wrote 1 month after her diagnosis on prayer. And it has become a prayer for many and a source of meditation, that I've had priests tell me that they use that and they meditate on each line. And it's very, very deep, you know, so there's all of that happening. But one of the first things Maria received was a picture of students at John Paul II High School in Uganda. And they're holding up placards spelling out, praying for Maria. We all go, oh my gosh.
How did it get all the way to?
From a person who knows a person who knows a person. And so Brian had an acquaintance with Chuck, and Chuck is on the board of Building a Bridge to Uganda, which is a foundation that started here in the United States, and right in Bucks County. And they built a high school there was a need. Father Joseph from Uganda had come here requesting. He said, I don't want your money, I want your friendship. I want you to come to Uganda and see. Yeah. And so from that blossomed this beautiful Catholic high school that houses now about 800 students.
Oh my gosh.
So this beautiful Ugandan connection starts, unbeknownst to me why, although now the Lord is showing us more and more, praying for Maria. And then with that was sent a letter from one of the students. Maria never met her. Her name was Patience. I looked at everything, it's like, okay, God is speaking, and he does. If you keep your eyes open, he speaks volumes to us each day. And patience was a word that I needed to eat and digest for a long time. And Patience wrote about how she was praying for Maria, and she used scripture and told Maria to have hope. And although I know we'll never meet each other, I wish we could, but we live on opposite ends of the planet. And then went on to tell Maria about her brother who is suffering from sickle cell anemia. And so Maria read it and was like, oh, wow. Fast forward, Father Joseph comes from Uganda, and he wants to meet Maria. And I'll never forget it. He's down the patio with us, and he says, Susan and Brian, he said, I want you to take Maria to Uganda. I was like, excuse me, Father? Yeah. And he's like, I want you to take her to Uganda. I'm like, Father, she has an MRI next week, okay? So, you know, like all the, yeah. And he's like, I don't care. And then I felt like, okay, Lord, you're asking me, do I trust you? Because medicine gave us no hope. There was nothing they could do for Maria. She went through radiation, and that was only to shrink the tumor a little bit to help with symptoms. That's it. They handed us morphine.
I was going to say anything
yeah,
for
palliative care.
For pain.
Yeah, which she never took. They handed us that, and basically that was it. But God was working in mysterious ways. So mysterious that there's a book that has just been completed on the last 20 months of Maria's life. The manuscript is done, and Ascension Press is going to be publishing it. And so that's like a whole nother chapter, because I could stand here and sit here and tell you there's so many things. When you allow God's grace, when you open up your heart to his grace, it floods your life. And it flooded our life. In these darkest moments, God is more present. It's not like, and I'm beginning to understand the cross as much as you can on this earth, that when you're asked to carry a cross and when you're asked to carry a heavy cross, it comes with unbelievable blessings and also a journey to imitate Christ, to walk a walk that he did for us that now you can do for him. And Maria knew that, and she even wrote about it. She had a very terrible Good Friday, and on that Good Friday, she said, "This is not a good day. I'm not feeling good. My suffering is great, but let's go and keep saving souls." There were things happening within her that were mysterious through this journey. And I'm going to fast forward a little bit now. We did go to Uganda. So when Father said that, and I felt like I was being tested, so, medicine's giving you no hope. You said you put your hope in God. You're getting an invitation to take her to Uganda, and you're saying, "Oh, wait, let's see." And then he said, he looked at me, and Brian and I looked at each other, and we're like, "We're going to Uganda." Do I have to tell you the backlash from people like, "Are you crazy? There's no doctor. There's no hospital.
Friends. Yeah.
There's no doctor. There's no hospital. You're taking this girl with a brain tumor to Africa, to a third world. Like, this is not." Like, "Yeah, we're going. Maria's going to meet patients, and she's going to meet these students who've been praying for her." And she wrote that 2019, the year she got diagnosed January 31st of 2019. She wrote that at the end of that year, that it was the best year of her life. Pain and joy, she wrote, coexist. What do you want to focus on? Maria focused on joy. She had a heart of gratitude. This nasty tumor slowly stripped her of every physical attribute while her mind was all there. She watched her lose the ability to use her legs, her arms, her hearing, her speech, her swallowing. All these things slowly stripped away. It was a beautiful spring day in April of 2020. And she was using a walker. She even had friends come over to decorate the walker with her.
Oh, nice.
Oh, I'm telling you, she looked at everything, and she sat on the swing with me, and she said, "Mom, everything we do and we get to do is a gift from God. The use of our hands and our legs, Mom, are God's gift to us." And she said, if God, and we're praying for a miracle, let me tell you, you double down on praying for a miracle. It doesn't matter what diagnosis you're giving, because God gives the prognosis. Medicine can give you a diagnosis, but the prognosis is God. He's the creator. He creates life, and then he calls you home in his time. Maria knew this, and she said, "Mom, if God grants this miracle, and I hope he does, and I'm healed, I won't even take my next breath for granted, because that too is a gift from God." That's how deep her gratitude for all the gifts that she was given and the things that she was able to do. That's the messages now she leaves behind for me and for others, that having a heart of gratitude is one of the first things. On that day when I picked her up and had to help her into the swing, she just put her head on my shoulder and just stayed with me, and then shared with me how much God is. She would say to me, "Mom, are you worried?" And I'm like, "Of course, Maria, I have concerns." "Why?" "Jesus already won the spiritual battle." That's what she would tell me. And I'd be like, "Okay, Maria,
Was that hard for you to receive?
Well, you know what? That's a good question, Rachel, because as a mom, right, you're focused, you're a nurturer, and you take care of boo-boos in life. It's part of our nature. This one I had no remedy for, right? So yes, I always, in my insides were always, had that feeling that you get. I don't know how to explain it. but certainly that was present. But I knew also as a mom that I had to have my hope and trust in God and be that presence for Maria. I can crumble. I crumbled on my own in private. I cried every shower. I cried out for Jesus every shower. If only she could touch you, if only she could touch you, she'd be healed. That was my...
Yeah, I remember when my brother passed away, and I saw the reaction of my mother on the news that he died. I said on that time, this is an image of the sorrowful mother of sorrow. Blessed Virgin Mary, Mother of Sorrow. And probably every mother, knowing or seeing her child dying or dead, is like an image of Our Lady, Mother of Sorrow.
Absolutely. And that's who I walked with. Our Lady, our Blessed Mother. She knew the walk.
Yeah.
She did this walk. I don't know this walk, Mary. I would say, Mom, the Mary, I don't know this and I'm scared. Take my hand. And she did. And she did. So Maria, it was very interesting. As she lost her ability to walk, and I was like, oh, Lord, now I have to tell her that she can't go to school because she can't walk now. She's not going to be able to do those corridors. Same weekend, COVID hits. Schools shut down.
Oh my gosh.
And Maria was like, well, looks like I can't go to school. Nobody's going to school.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, no, it looks like that. She goes, I guess the world's waiting for me to get better. I said, apparently.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
How did it happen that she, let me say, got into such a close relationship with Archbishop Perez?
That's a very good question. So, timely too, because the school shut down. Archbishop, the newly appointed Archbishop of Philadelphia, gets appointed the same weekend, his first weekend on the job. His first message out to his flock is, the churches are closing. That came from, I guess, his authority, whatever, close the churches. We were home, we were sitting, I'll never forget it. Maria picks up her laptop, sends out an email to the Archbishop, basically saying, people in my condition, we need the Eucharist. The only thing we should fear is the absence of God. And he responded. And he said, have your parents call me. I personally will bring you the Eucharist. So when he did come to the house, he got out of the car. He had a driver, and he got out of the car. He did one of these. I was watching from the kitchen window to see if he was, coming. And I was like, oh, he's in a hurry. Okay, this is Maria, the Archbishop is here, that kind of thing. He came in, said hello to Maria. First thing he asked her, he said, before I give you our Lord, would you like me to hear your confession? And she said, and I'm thinking to myself, no. And she's like, yes, I would, Your Excellency. And I'm thinking, okay, so Brian and I take off. We're out of the house, right? And give her time. Nobody's calling us back in. Then they're laughing. They're having a great time. They hit it off. He told us recently that was the most substantial discussion he ever had with a young person on the role of sacramental grace. I'm still trying to understand what that means. No. But,
Unpack that,
unpack,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That when he left, she was calling him Nels. They had struck up a friendship that it's a mystery. It's really a mystery to me. And I did ask him though, I said, Your Excellency, why did you respond to Maria? And he said, I'm sitting at my computer and I'm getting hammered by thousands and thousands of nasty emails. Mm-hmm. He comes in, closes the church. Could you imagine? He's getting bombarded. He said, I'm sitting there and my computer lights up right to her email. And so I clicked on it. And he said, when I read that this is a young girl who has a brain tumor and she's asking to receive the Eucharist, I'm going to bring it myself. And they struck up this friendship. And then he came to the hospital to ask Maria to pray. He also asked her to pray for his sister-in-law at that time. And then he showed up unannounced one day. He told Brian that he'd be coming, but by himself to the hospital, drove himself to see her when she was hospitalized. So it's a mystery as to why this relationship. It was beautiful, and you know, and they shared something that only God knows, you know, and interesting.
So what is the more you are expecting right now? The more.
The more. Well, so always more, is that what you're, always more. So do you know that Villa Joseph Marie's motto is always more, always better, and always with love?
Can you say it one more time?
Always more, always better, always with love. And that's Mother Maria Kaupas. She's Venerable Mother Maria Kaupas, who's the foundress of Villa Joseph Marie High School. And she was a Lithuanian immigrant. And her brother was a priest. And it was the first time when she came to the United States that she saw ladies in habits. Didn't even know what a nun was. And then she was guided to become a nun and all this, and starts this order for Lithuanian immigrants. And so that was in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And then she opened a mother house in Chicago and a hospital. And she was like another Mother Cabrini around the same time, but for Lithuanian immigrants. So Maria's school, the first thing we did when Maria was diagnosed is started to pray to Mother Maria, because Maria wanted her so badly to be recognized as a saint. And the whole school and the community, we all did this prayer to Mother Maria Kaupas. And then we got out to Chicago. Before Maria started her radiation, or she had to go for a biopsy in Washington, we said, no, we're going to go to Chicago and we're going to pray at Mother Maria's sarcophagus in the Mother House. And that's how Maria started her journey. So it was faith first. It was faith first. No different than her life, you know. So, and, yeah. So there's more. So Maria, then at home, she aspirated, losing this ability to swallow and stuff, and she aspirated her lungs. And it was an emergency visit to Doylestown Hospital. She had 2 of them. The second one was the one that hospitalized her, and we thought we were going to lose her that night. And there's lots more in between all this that I'm not going to go into because we'll be here for a few days.
Yeah. A lot.
There is a lot. But she became hospitalized, and now you have to realize this is during COVID. Already God, you see, God is a God of miracles, and he does things that are like not even in your radar or in your brain. We're like living in Doylestown Hospital. It's COVID. Nobody's allowed to have, my husband and I, she's a minor, we're like living there. I'm not leaving my daughter. And I'm taking care of her as much as I can, as I did at home. With the nurses, I helped every bath, shampoo, everything, right? Made sure her body, make sure she was being turned, all this stuff. But, so we're there, and now like the administration scratching their head, like, why are we allowing all this? What is going on in that room? There's a lot of questions. And now the hospital staff is coming into her room to find peace. There's a 17-year-old dying in this room. And they're coming in to find peace. There was something mystical happening. Maria, as she surrendered herself to God, and as she lost her ability and all her physical attributes being stripped from her, the more that was taken away, the more the Lord imbued himself in her spiritually. She was becoming a spiritual powerhouse when she couldn't even utter a word. That's the mystery that is started to unfold and continues to unfold today. And Maria touched so many lives. People who asked us what they could do. What can I do? Well, you know, we have a lot of friends, and pray. But I haven't prayed. I don't pray. You asked us, pray. And then they would start praying, and then they found themselves back at church, some back to the sacraments. I received a photo of this gentleman I don't even know, who's a friend of a friend. People are asking all their friends and family members to pray for Maria, and he's standing in New Jersey outside of this church, this Catholic church, really proud that he went to confession for the first time in 25 years because he was asked to do this, to pray for Maria, and it brought him back. Things like that. And there's so many more undocumented, you know. Things like that were happening. And that's the mystery, and that's the miracles, actually, that started to come forth, was just the fact that Maria, just lying in a hospital bed, became an offering, you know, for others.
And her first grade, going back to what she wrote in first grade, it connected, and it will, you know, continue. Where if
now Maria wanted this miracle just as much as every one of us wanted it, and I would ask her. You know, she began to, then she couldn't speak anymore, so then we'd have a whiteboard in the hospital and I'd write down things and she would answer me. And then, of course, it was very difficult when she lost the ability to answer, when she lost even mouth, she couldn't mouth the words anymore. And our communication got down to just her eyes, up for yes, down for no. So now questions were yes or no. But these mystical things continue to happen. And one of them I'll share. Kathleen McCarthy was Maria's spiritual advisor. Oh my God. And Maria selected her. Maria knew her granddaughter. They went to school together. They shared the same birthday. And we said to Maria, look, you know, Brian was doing lion's share of the work, trying to find every new trial, every doctor. He was talking to Switzerland, to Zurich, to the head of the doctors that knew anything about her tumor. All those bases were covered. And I said, well, Maria, that dad's taking care of the physical. I said, but your spiritual part, I'm your mom. Certainly we'll pray together every day. I said, but maybe a spiritual advisor that you could have privately, you know. And she selected Kathleen. So Kathleen would meet with her every day, and then when COVID hit, she would Zoom her. And just an unbelievable gift, actually. There was... in April, I did not know about this conversation. I didn't know about any of their conversations, and nor would I. This was between Kathleen and Maria. But Kathleen shared this publicly, and I almost fainted. She said one day in Maria's bedroom, I guess it was like towards the end of April, May, when she was more bedridden, Maria said to Mrs. McCarthy, I have a question. And she said, she looked at me square in the eyes, and she said, Maria asked her, am I going to live or am I going to die? And Kathleen was taken back by this direct question, and her response was, only God knows that, Maria. You know, I know we're praying for a miracle, but only God knows that. But she said right then the Holy Spirit placed something in her heart, in Kathleen's heart. And Kathleen said, but there is something that I do know. And Maria looked at her and said, what is it? She said, you will be recognized as a canonized saint in this one Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. Those words came out of Kathleen's mouth. She said, with that, Maria's eyes became as big as a saucer. And she said, Mrs. McCarthy, if what you're saying is true, then I surrender everything to God. She totally gave her fiat to whatever God wanted to use, however he wanted to use her. I knew nothing of this conversation. I find out at Villa's Hope-a-thon when Kathleen's one of the guest speakers, and she gets up there and tells 400 girls this, and I'm like, what? Oh, are you kidding?
The first thing is, oh.
And there was local news there, and they cornered Kathleen. Did you hear what you said? You know, and she said, what did I say? And you said that she's going to be a saint. She said, if I said it, it's true. And that was it. So I did not know this, of course, you know. But when Maria was then hospitalized for almost 5 months, Doylestown Hospital, they're not a long-term facility, you know, and they didn't know what to do with Maria. All they knew, that she was changing the culture of the hospital. They told us people would, you know, they were in a hurry running from room to room, and people, and, you know, the lab workers and the nurses and the nurse assistants and the doctors, and nobody would really, they'd kind of fly through and not even hold the door for each other. But because of Maria, there was a culture now growing in the hospital where they would stop and recognize the person and recognize them. And then, like I said, her room became almost this like monastery of prayer. I was teaching the rosary to some nurses. Some were thinking about coming back to the church. All of these conversations were going on and on because there was so much happening. Maria, on a Holy Saturday, there was a car parade that made national news when 527 vehicles came by our home to wish Maria, what?
I think I saw it online. It is online. And it's like, I mean, these Bucks County roads they go on and on and on, and it's like
Rachel, Father, there were John Deere tractors. There were 18 wheels. There was where did all these trucks? Motorcycles.
I saw motorcycles. And they had the big leather jacket. They looked like these big burly guys.
And they were throwing out flowers and throwing out cards and all this stuff. And Maria was having, I told you that was that bad Good Friday. And that Holy Saturday, she could hardly see. And I was standing right there, and I was just telling her all the cars I recognized were some of her friends who was coming by, and she was just taking it in as best she could. But that was just unbelievable. Yeah. All of that, we didn't orchestrate that. And I'm going to fast forward because I don't know if it's been 2 days now that we're speaking.
I was going to say, I have a few questions, but I'm I feel like we need can we do a part 2? I'm just saying, keep going. No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What you have on your car, think hope.
That's right. So
think hope.
So now think hope were the last 2 words that Maria was physically able to write. She stripped of the ability to write, and after she passed, I knew what journal she was writing in, and I was curious, what was the last thing she could write? Because she was journaling through these rough days, and there were just 2 words. She wrote poor handwriting because then she couldn't hold a pen right. Poor writing, she wrote, and underneath that, think hope. And Maria meant hope eternal. It wasn't an optimism, it wasn't a wishful thought. It was hope eternal. So I'm going to go to the last moments of her life because I think that this is probably something your listeners can take with them maybe, We're praying for a miracle. And if anyone out there is battling cancer, has a scary diagnosis, or suffering in any way, you need to think hope. And I'll tell you why. And you need to keep praying for that miracle, no matter what. And we prayed for a miracle, no matter what. God raised Lazarus. Maria and I would joke about that. Yeah. Jesus, he's 4 days late, but right on time, according to Lazarus, right? Right? I mean, his works are beyond our understanding. One of the things that we incorporated right away when she was homebound, we were reading things about saints, lives of saints. And many of their lives were not easy. Some of them were facing persecution, martyrdom, all these things, living in terrible conditions. And they had a common practice. All saints began each day praising God no matter the circumstances. So, of course, I'm what's the greatest praise to God? And of the Psalms, and it was Psalm 145. And we started every day praising God with Psalm 145. And that's no matter what the day was, what was going to unfold. We're putting our heart and our mind praising God, and in a way that's surrendering to Him the day. He's in charge. And that's how we lived. Mm-hmm. So Maria's hospitalized now, and now she, like I said, she can't speak. It was June 8th of 2020. At this point, she asked for the alphabet board. She could still point. And she spells out, I think God forgot me. Well, I don't have to tell you how heavy that hit my heart. I'm like, oh no, don't give up hope. We're still praying for this miracle, And, every day we would, I would tell her what the gospel reading of the day, we would do Psalm 145, and then we would go into what's going on in the world, politics, her friends, the family, all that kind of stuff. That was our daily routine. So when I got that message that morning that I think God forgot me, I realized that the darkness was surrounding her at this point, and prayed very very much so into the night. Because she can't hear, she can only read. And how do I reach her, Lord? How do I reach her and still buoy her up? The next morning comes and she looks at me for the board, and I'm thinking, I really don't want to give it to you, but okay. And I give her the board, and she spells out, "This is about to be huge." And I was like, thank you, God, she's still believing in a miracle. Thank you. It was just such a consolation to my soul for that. I don't know what happened. I don't know what transpired through the night, through prayers with her conversation with God. I don't know anything. And I still don't know, but it's starting to unfold in big ways, in huge ways. Fast forward, Maria. So Maria lapses into a coma. Before she lapsed into the coma, I was only using her eyes to answer me yes or no. I had asked her if she met Jesus. She looked down, no. She hadn't met him yet. It's okay. I said, is the Blessed Mother with you? She shot her eye up so strong, like finally, like she was saying, finally you get it, Mom. Finally, you know. It was like, yes, yes. Oh, the peace that filled my heart at that moment, I can't even begin to describe it. And I said, great. I wrote, great. And then the nurse was asking me, I said, I'll be right back. I have to do some things. She closed her eyes. She never opened them again. My last conversation with Maria was that Blessed Mother was with her. And that peace carried me through her coma days. And I remember this one early morning, I'm doing the rosary at her bed. And Father, you would think, you're doing the rosary. You wouldn't think any dark voices could get in during that rosary.
Well.
You probably know better than me. I wouldn't think. But it did. I'm saying my rosary, and this ugly, dark voice that I wanted to run from, in the depth of my soul, speaks very loudly and says, your daughter will die. We're praying for a miracle. This isn't anything I want to hear. We're still praying for a miracle. But when he uttered die, another voice of great authority, another voice that was so strong, I wanted to jump into his arms of this voice, said, even if she dies, and I knew right then he meant body, she lives. She never dies. She lives. I conquered death. That voice was no doubt the voice of the Anointed One of our Lord, right? Because the devil is all about the accuser and a liar. And that's his greatest lie, that we kind of fear death instead of realizing that death's been conquered. We live, we never die. Our bodies die, but then they'll be joined again, as the Lord said. And the Lord doesn't lie, right? So that whole thing happened during that week when she was in a coma. But here I am doing my prayers, and I look at Maria, and she's in a coma, and I'm like, Maria, this is great. You live. No matter what, honey, you live. Like, it was just a beautiful, and probably it sounds crazy to most, but this beautiful piece of knowing that no matter what, we live. Christ conquered death. He nailed it to the cross. That's why he came. He came to set us free. He came so that we could have life. So the morning of October 8th, I noticed her stats start to decrease, her blood pressure, her pulse. Like, I'm not liking this. I wake up Brian, I'm like, call the kids. I said, call Father Timothy, call Kathleen. I said, call everybody in here. I said, these numbers are not looking good. He steps out to make the phone calls, and I just got into prayer. And I was like, Father God, I said, I know, we've been praying for a miracle, and I know that I've been praying that your will be done. I said, but right now I don't know what your will is. And I said, and I'm frightened. And in the silence of my heart is this beautiful, gentle question. do you desire heaven for your daughter, Maria? Of course. Of course I desire heaven. Every parent desires heaven for their child. Yes. And then he goes on and says, if I take Maria home to heaven now, I will protect her along the way. The devil will not assail her, and I will take her safely home. And I'm like, oh. But Father God, she's only 18. And this beautiful, gentle voice had to turn my brain around to have a little bit of light of his at that moment. He gives me another question. 20? 25? 35? Just to make me realize there's never a time, Lord, that a mother can say. And then I said, you know what, Father God, you do the driving. I've been pulling the steering wheel from you way too long. I'm going to just jump in the back seat and you drive the rest of the way. And with that, the family came around the bed, and I held Maria's hand on one side, and Brian was on the other side of the bed. And Father Timothy read the gospel of the day, and it was our favorite gospel. It was the ask, seek, and knock.
Oh.
Yes! Yes! We're asking, we're seeking, we're knocking. God's going to give us what we want. You know? So now I'm like, wait, maybe, you know, this kind of thing. But that gospel goes on, as you know, Father. It says, what father among you would hand your kid a scorpion if he asked for an egg, or a whatever if he asked for a fish? You know, I'm probably messing it up, but you know which one I mean, right? Like, what father among you, even those who are wicked, give their children good things, right? And I found out later in Father Timothy's homily that he addressed that. And I'm going to come back to that. So we're around Maria's bed, holding her hand, and her stats begin to improve. So I'm like, okay. And Father was like, I have 11:30 Mass. I said, yeah, Father, go. It looks like, you know, it looks like she's holding and stable. And I said to Brian and the kids, I was like, watch the numbers. I said, the bathroom's 3 steps. I said, I want to just throw some cold water in my face, maybe brush my teeth, and I'll be right out. I step away. I said, if anything starts to change, just bang on that door. No sooner did I throw water in my face as bang at the door. I come running out and I see her stats are dropping again. And I hold her hand. And everything starts to improve. And then from my heart to her heart, I picked myself up and I put my forehead on top of her forehead. And I said, Maria, I said, I know how much you want a miracle. And I know how much you don't want the thousands of people who have been praying for this miracle to be disappointed. I said, but if God right now is showing you heaven, and he does not lie, for he says that eye has not seen, ear has not heard, nor has it entered into the heart of men what God has prepared for those who love him. I said, if he is showing you heaven and it's that great, I said, you go, I'll explain. I pick myself up from her. I sit down on the chair. Her heart stops. She's gone. The family is all like, and I'm like, no, I have to explain. I have to explain. Back to the gospel. The egg and the fish is heaven. Any miracle here is short-lived, because then eventually the person would have to die. If Maria got a physical healing here, she would live for whatever God decided, and then he would take her home. But instead, he gave her heaven. He gave her the fish. He gave her the egg right from there. And that's the message of hope. That's the message of hope, hope eternal. So just because we don't get what it is that we're praying for, it doesn't mean that God doesn't hear us or doesn't care. He wants to give us something better. And I can say that now with a broken heart. He gave her heaven. And I know that. And she came to me in a dream after she passed, fully healed. Fully healed. And I was like, wow, that's great. You want to come back? And she laughed at me. And, no, Mom, no. And I was like, yeah, this is probably not where you want to be. So think hope. So Maria passes, and very interesting though, because I told her I would explain. And when she was here on earth with me, I would joke with her because being my youngest, the other kids were gone through college, and now her siblings are married and there's grandkids, right? And I said, hey, Maria, you know what? I said, you're going to be getting ready to go to college. I said, and it's about time Mom learns something new. Let's be roomies. And she's like, no, Mom, no way. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I said, wouldn't it be fun, though? No, Mom. So, but she's got the last laugh because now, with Think Hope, I'm working for her.
Oh, jeez. That's right.
We didn't want to go to school together, but now you're employing me. So Think Hope. The last written words. We shared it with a friend of ours after she passed. And he jumped out of his seat and he said, you have to start a foundation. And I'm like, a what? How do you do that? You know, that kind of thing. Well, with that, we started the foundation. And the mission of the foundation you read, and you may reread if you want, you know.
If you don't mind.
No.
So, a nonprofit organization dedicated to unleashing the power of hope, one person at a time, in a world of despair through educational and outreach ministries. Yeah.
Right. So, because of this, Think Hope, we took ministries that were important to Maria and have expanded that. But so, for example, when she went to Uganda, she just loved the children there and all that. So she had such a connection there that one of the first things we visited, because I wanted to see the students after Maria passed, because they were grieving and praying for her and wanted a miracle too. So I wanted to explain to them what happened in her final moments and how heaven is the goal. It's not a few more years on this earth, it's heaven. And so we had the privilege of going over and explaining it to them, but they now take her journal writings and they have Think Hope ambassadors on that campus, and they use that and they bring hope into their villages. So her message of hope is not just there, but it's spreading out into the villages there in Uganda. So that's one thing. Maria did a few coat drives for the Mother of Mercy House down in Kensington. And so we continue with that. And they renamed their coat drive now the Maria Middleton Coat Drive in honor of Maria. So we had nothing to do with these things. This is the amazing part. And it's the way that God is working through her here. So, and then there's a whole bunch of other things because other people in other ministry have come into our lives. The classical education, Maria was classically educated. So we are big proponents of classical education so that children learn how to think, not what to think. Okay, so how to think is real important, you know. And then also to instill in them that they're a child of God, you know, and their true identity. Maria wasn't caught up in the culture confusion because she knew she was a child of God and she knew she was made in His image, and you know, so she had a purpose and she had meaning to her life and these things. So we try to foster that, and then there's more, and that's growing. So last summer, Father Joseph came from Africa to visit and asked Brian and me if the three of us can go out to dinner. He had a question for us. So we went out to dinner, and I was like, yes, Father, you know, what did my husband do wrong? No. Yes, Father, what is it? And he said, well, I'm here because the apostles of Jesus acquired land in northern Uganda by the Sudan border. So it's like 7 hours north of the high school. And the children there were learning under a tree. They don't have a physical building. There's nothing. And so they acquired these acres of land, and he wanted to tell us that they got the approval to start building a primary school. And we were like, this is fantastic. He said, yeah, but I'm not here for that reason. I'm here to ask you a question. And I said, what's that? He said, we want to name the school Maria Middleton Primary School. And I was like, here I go again. I was like, Father, is that like, right? Could we, maybe we should wait? Yeah. He goes, wait for what? And I said, well, maybe till Maria's like, if she's on that road to sainthood, maybe till she's recognized. He said, Susan, I don't have to wait. He said, I've walked with two saints in my life, Mother Teresa of Calcutta and your Maria. I don't have to wait. And I was just like, okay. And so This beautiful, so this now, the first thing they had to do is drill a well. So not only do the people in that village have a school, they have water.
Oh my God.
They didn't have water. They had to walk miles with those jerry cans on their head for water every day. And so so when we went to visit them, the school was dedicated this past April, and Brian and I went to Uganda and up to the school. And I was laughing and crying the whole trip. Yeah. It was very emotional. But the head of the village came to us and said, I want to thank you for this school. And I was like, well, we had nothing to do with the school. And he said, no. He said, it's Maria Middleton's school. And I said, yeah, Maria had something to do with this. And he said, but you don't understand. He said, we lived in such darkness. He said, now because of the school, we have hope. And I was like...
So think hope, and there is always more. And I think we'll have to meet again.
I was gonna say, I didn't even get to the questions that I appreciate you going into that much detail, because my hope is that young adults see this. The goal is always for so many people to see this. My goal would be young adults, because I think she's just this beautiful example of you can be that young and have this authentic relationship with Christ.
Do you know what one of her sayings is? You don't have to be weird to be holy.
See, we could have been like, oh my gosh, because I had it in college at one of the Bible studies. I think I told you this. It was, baloney, and it was something like, the truth will make you weird. It'll set you apart. Yeah, you know, and I think I feel like she's right there with Carla Sakudis. I think she's within that age group to show these young men and women, but I also feel like she's this beautiful example for adults as well.
She had a beautiful saying, you talk about on your podcast show, about talents and how God uses people, right? Because he calls each one of us individually with unique talents, right? And Maria, who was blessed with many talents, as her mom, I was like, oh, I can't wait to see what field she's going to go into, But she wrote in her journal that we were each unique human beings, and God gives us many talents. And he said, but she said, and I'm paraphrasing her now, but she said, but the main purpose of those talents is to use them and give them back to him.
Yeah. I think we can talk and talk and talk much more, because there is always more. There's always more. And let's think hope. And through everything what you shared about your daughter, just let us pray for recognizing her as a saint. Next year is going to be 5 years since she passed away. 5 years is the time when church officially can open the beatification process. So let's pray for that.
And you know what, Father? 2025 is the pilgrim year of hope.
Oh, come on, please. Oh,
you see, I can't make this you have to keep your eyes open.
It's a jubilee.
Jubilee year.
Jubilee, a holy year.
So now, when she wrote, this is about to be huge, I was just thinking, thank you, she's still believing in a miracle. But she was probably saying, you have no idea, Mom.
You have no idea what's coming.
You have and we don't have any idea.
Yeah.
So, we need to pray not for Maria, but through Maria, through her intercession, for the huge things in our lives, and for the huge things in the lives of all those listening to us right now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us here tonight, for donating your time to us. And hopefully we'll meet again soon to talk about much more, and about the huge. So thank you so much. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you, everyone, for spending this time with us. And just stay tuned. More episodes, more conversations, podcasts soon. God bless you.